is pleased to bring you our feature presentation.
Have to return some videotapes. 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 Have to return some videotapes.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Strange Glow Video. Tonight we are going to talk about a movie that I have never seen.
Well, now you have.
And yeah, I have now. Up until basically today, I finished this thing.
It took you 23 fucking years to see this.
So I'm trying to think. So this one came out in 2001. So we're talking Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring. So
were you too cool for this shit at the time? What were you, 16? 17?
So in 2001, I would have been 17.
Yeah, probably. I think it came out in December. So yeah,
and I think
just too cool, hadn't too much going on.
Man, I was playing in a band at the time and doing other shit, so I just think I was, it's too fucking busy for a movie that was 3 hours long.
Yeah, there was a lot of, in those mid to late teen years too, you kind of abandon some things because you're like, that's not as cool anymore. And then later on, depends on how late. Some of that stuff becomes cool again because it wasn't cool. Like Ninja Turtles, for example, became cool when you were like 17 again because it wasn't cool from like, I don't know, 12 to 15. But by then it's cool again. You know what I mean? Like these things go in and out of waves when you're in your weird teen years.
Well, it's cyclical, right? You have friends that are just uber nerds and then trying to find that ground of like, oh, I'm playing a punk rock band. Okay. And then, I'm surprised that I didn't see it though, because I went to a shitload of movies in high school still.
Yeah.
So, but it just was one of those things that, and then by the time the second one came out, I'd graduated and had my own place. So like all my free fucking money was going towards surviving. And then anything that was beyond that was going to like band stuff, like playing in a band. So
yeah. I saw this in theaters. I was 10.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
And I thought it was awesome, but like I didn't know the source material at all. I didn't know it even came from anything when I like first saw it. Like I'm sure by the time it was going around later on with the second movie. Actually, I can confirm that because I did order the second one from like a Scholastic thing and had the novelization version. Like it's not a novelization, but like it has the movie cover art and stuff,
Yeah, the updated version, the trade paperback for the theatrical release they do for lots of movies.
Yeah, so I had that for Two Towers. And this is one of those movies, it's a weird phenomenon I just really noticed recently too. So in the late 90s, early 2000s, we're a family that bought movies. For Christmas, sometimes I'd get a movie or two and stuff. We didn't have the most insane movie collection, but we had a few here and there and some good shit. We each had our own little collections of a couple movies too. And so I had Star Wars Episode 1 on VHS. I remember making Mom take me to the store to get it.
Okay, yeah.
But we had a DVD player at this point. But she did not buy me the DVD. She bought me the VHS. Which is interesting.
DVDs were still way more expensive then.
Yeah. So I was kind of like, man, whatever. I'll take it. It's VHS. But
yeah,
I had a VCR in my room. I probably didn't have a DVD player in my room at the time. So
yeah, because
I had
the time
PS2, I think.
Yeah, I was gonna say at the time I had the PS2 because I bought that when I was working at Toys R Us. Yeah. And so I started trickling in to get DVDs then that way because I had the DVD player at that point. And I remember, we had a family DVD player that was in the living room with the big screen. So I'm sure she bought you that. That way you weren't trying to use the living room TV all the time.
Yeah. So then what's interesting about that is the first Harry Potter movie came out in 2002.
Okay.
And I also had that first one on VHS.
Interesting. Okay.
and the first Lord of the Rings movie on VHS. Stop.
Did they even release the entire Harry Potter series on VHS?
Babe? Okay, what was that?
Oh shit!
Just heard like a crashing noise. I couldn't tell if it was outside or in the apartment.
Yeah.
So I was like, but anyway, so I had the first 3 of those movies on VHS. By the time the second movie came out of each, I had Attack of the Clones, I had Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, and I had Lord of the Rings: The Two Towers, but I had them all on DVD.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like that transitional period of we're not buying tapes anymore, we're buying DVDs.
Yeah, that was a strange period, right? I remember. So I had the Star Wars trilogy, right? On the special editions, I got the VHS of that, and then Episode 1 came out, and I didn't buy it. My buddy Joel gave me a copy. Somehow he had 2 copies of it, and so he gave me the extra one or something like that. And I don't know if he won one at work or something, because he worked at Toys R Us way longer than I did. And so I don't know if he got a gift set there with it, but I just remember like that being a series where you started out with the VHS, but by the time the sequels were coming out, you were on DVD, you know?
Yeah.
And I think the PS2 sold so fucking well that like damn near everyone had a DVD player strictly because of that. So it was super easy to switch over.
Well, because at the time, a DVD player probably was 150, 200, 250, $300, and you could buy a new PlayStation 2 for $200. And I remember that because I mowed lawns all summer, like once for it. And so that's why I bought my own PlayStation, because you had moved out, so we didn't have a PlayStation 2 anymore. And I was like, well, shit, this sucks.
I mean, I think all the games we had were mine, but
well, right. But I mean, just, now I was left with a fucking PlayStation. What am I? A peasant?
Yeah. Well, and the fact that it was backwards compatible was so fucking awesome at the time, because I took my PlayStation 1 games with me, I was like, I had everything. And I remember getting that, like, we got a bunch of men at Toys R Us one night. I think we got 40 in around the holiday, and it was, around November, I think. And so I called Dad, and I was like, hey, come down here. And I had him put it on a credit card, and I just paid him back over time with my paychecks because he knew I was good for it, But Toys R Us was doing some snake oil shit back then. They're only letting you buy it if you bought 2 games with it. So everyone that bought one had to buy at least 2 games with it, which, because consoles don't make any money. All the money's made off the games. So
what did you buy?
Smuggler's Run and Ridge Racer 5, I think is what it was, were the first 2 I had. Both car games, but no, it wasn't even that. There was Silent Scope or something like that, maybe is what it was called. Let me look it up.
I remember Ridge Racer 5, but I don't remember you having Smuggler's Run, so maybe you got rid of that.
Oh, yeah, Silent Scope for PS2. Yeah, that was it. Silent Scope and Smuggler's Run. Yeah, it was fascinating because, we're in this era of all these movies, and I'm just like, how the hell did I miss these? And it's not that I had anything against them. And then I went so long without seeing them, I just refused to watch them. I mean, at that point, I was like, yeah, fuck it.
Yeah.
And then they had all the versions out. And then, if I ever had an interest, it was like, well, where do you start? Do you need to read the books first? Do you watch the regular versions? Do you watch the extended versions? Like, where do you get into this at? It's quite the undertaking to figure out. And so
I still don't have a copy of the extended versions, but I do plan to get the extended versions on 4K because I heard these looked incredible on 4K. So be pretty sick to check out.
I will say, so I was pretty impressed overall with the visuals of this movie. Like, it looks really well done, and I know they did a lot of forced perspective to get, the hobbits to look small and everything, and like that was fucking incredibly well done in camera techniques, right? I mean, that was amazing. But the CGI looks pretty good in there too, and held up pretty well. I was pretty impressed, not having seen them and having any frame of reference for them, right? Now, I saw one of these movies, and I'm trying to figure out which one it was. Like, in my first apartment, I didn't have a washer and dryer, so I'd come home to do laundry, and I know at some point in time I saw part of one of these movies on on VHS or DVD or whatever in the living room of the house. And I just
if I'm remembering correctly, it has to be the first one, but
okay.
yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Because
But I can't, when I was watching it, I was like, I kept feeling like there was like a big horseback scene, like
there
of
were
them
quite
like being rescued by the river. And I'm like, is that not the first one?
oh, that happened at the end of the movie, kind of.
Yeah.
Or
And that's kind of what I was trying to figure out. I was like, okay, was that it? Was this
you
whole
talking about
battle?
Erwin when she like takes off Frodo off, Liv Tyler?
Yeah, no, but this is like a whole battle scene down by the river.
Well, there's
Is
a
what I
battle
was
scene
thinking.
at the end too, by the
Yeah.
river. So I'm thinking that's probably
But and I'm just trying to figure out, it was so long ago. I only saw part of it once. So I was like, did I, vaguely remembered some of these things looked vaguely familiar. So but
so.
I wasn't intentionally watching the movie. It was just on when I was at the house.
There's things that I didn't notice as a child, like all the references to smoking weed. Gandalf just
Oh.
be getting high all the time with these hobbits, bro.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, it's the finest weed in all of the Shire, or whatever he says. And then he like blows that circle on the pirate ship through it and shit.
I was just impressed with how straight Count Dooku's hair is when he grows it out.
He looks metal as fuck, dude.
Yeah, I know. That like this looked like it just looked like a metal music video for parts of this in a good way.
Oh,
Like
exactly.
not in a bad or contrived way, but I mean like in a fun way.
Dude, black metal bands are obsessed with Lord of the Rings. So checks out. Led Zeppelin was too. Like they have a bunch of songs that are named after shit from Lord of the Rings. So
I mean, but you look at this cast and it's a stacked cast.
yeah, so obviously let's talk about Elijah Wood first. This is him coming into adulthood because mostly he'd been doing child roles and even like teenage roles. You know, he did like Flipper. He did The Good Son. Obviously, Back to the Future 2.
Yeah, he did Radio Flyer, the movie, which is a really depressing movie if you've ever seen it.
He did some other stuff in the 90s I can't think of.
Mm-hmm.
But regardless, he plays in this as Frodo, obviously, and then became just a legendary actor from that alone. Oh, Deep Impact was another I was thinking of with Elijah Wood.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But he's gone on to become one of the most interesting people out there, I think, actor-wise. Like, I think he's interesting to listen to, talk, and stuff. And then Ian McKellen, which is interesting because at the time I was like, oh, this is Magneto.
Mm-hmm.
And he's playing a good guy. But it totally works. He's great as Gandalf, like the classic wizard, what you'd think of when you see a wizard in your head. Like, it's great. Like, what I love about these movies is the costume design stuff, too. None of it looks cheesy or anything. It reminds me of how, like, Marvel eventually updated their shit. So it actually looks real world and not like somebody's wearing fucking tights around.
Yeah, it wasn't distracting in the way a cheap school play would make it look.
Right.
Or like even a movie done in the 50s or 60s, right? It doesn't look like an old Disney movie where they're wearing tights and like felt costumes that are like made to look like it. It's all very well done, handcrafted. It looks super accurate to shit that is functional, but like really handmade.
Yeah.
So
we haven't even seen the second part. You only got to see a little bit of Andy Serkis as Gollum in this movie.
yeah, he's basically just in the beginning. And the version I watched was about 3 hours, I want to say. So I don't even think I watched the extended version. It didn't say.
Yeah, it's a little less than 3 hours. I think the extended it's like over 4.
Okay.
Like there's a lot of like 3 or 4 hours of extra footage in the extended versions altogether. So they shot all these movies back to back too. So
well, yeah, you'd almost have to. Like, I don't see why you wouldn't. So
well,
I wonder.
It was a whole thing when they were trying to get it made, like the rights and how many movies they were going to be. They were trying to get one movie made, and then they're like, well, maybe we'll do 2. And it's like, well, there's 3 books. Just do fucking 3 movies.
Yeah. Yeah, because this movie doesn't end on a happy note. This movie ends in the middle of the fucking journey. Like, right? You watch this movie and it's some Back to the Future 2 shit. You're just like, to be continued. It doesn't
Yeah.
say that, but it may as well.
And they put fucking Jennifer in the car, man. Like, why do you do that?
Yeah.
But
why
then there's Viggo Mortensen, which have you seen him in many things other than this?
I want to say I have because his name's super familiar.
He's in the really depressing movie The Road. Please don't shoot my headphones. He was also in some Cronenberg movies, History of Violence.
Okay.
And Crimes of the Future with Kristen Stewart, which is Cronenberg's last movie that he's done. That one's about like surgical performances as performance art. It's crazy. And then John Rhys Davies, who plays Gimli the dwarf from Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Mm-hmm.
Orlando Bloom, obviously big at the time from Pirates movies too. Early 2000s. I think he did this first, but
yeah, but Pirates is really what he blew up in, which is crazy considering how different his style is. Like it gives you a lot of credibility for him as an actor because he's such a different role in the Pirates films, right?
So there's crazy things about like the elves and how they have like powers and they're tall and they're all like beautiful and they live forever and shit. And like he walks on the snow, like he doesn't make an imprint in the snow. Everybody else is like dragging through the snow like a foot of it, and he's just walking on top of it and shit.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
That was in this movie. It's not super noticeable unless you're paying attention to shit like that. But yeah, he's like walking on it, and they're all drudging through it like when they're on the side of the mountain.
Okay.
But and then Hugo Weaving as Elrond at the beginning, and then he's meets them up in Rivendell, the elf place.
Yeah, so he has that role that's at the beginning, and obviously they kind of show you the flashback to him. He's like, I was there at that battle 3,000 years ago.
Yeah, because the elves just live forever and shit.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the setup is great, actually. I think it's like a great little just story at the beginning, and then you're like, oh, here now we're ready for the movie, and we get the Shire and everything. Let's see. Oh, Sam. So,
Samwise.
Yeah. What's his fucking name? I'm just drawing a blank now for some reason.
You know him. You love
I know him. I know he's in so many good things.
It's Sean Astin, man.
Yeah,
Sean
Encino Man, The Goonies, Stranger Things, 50 First Dates.
He's interesting in this because, you go from Goonies to seeing him as, yeah. You go from Goonies to Rudy, and then you see him in Stranger Things, and then like there's this whole segment here where you're like, huh. Just wasn't, super familiar with him. And it's not like when I'm watching him in this movie, it doesn't feel like Sean Astin, which is a good thing. It doesn't feel like I'm watching him at all. Now, obviously, Elijah Wood is a fucking dead ringer, pointy ears or whatnot. It's Elijah Wood. That's what makes it special, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, it was pretty fascinating seeing this whole story through.
So then the other two guys, Billy Boyd plays Pippin, and then the other one, Mary, is played by Dominic Monaghan. And he was someone I always thought they were going to cast in the new Star Wars movies. Here's the funny thing, they eventually did. He was in Last Jedi for a brief moment, I think.
Oh, okay.
At the very end. Not Last Jedi, Last Skywalker, whatever. Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah.
I know they're all. But he was at the end of that one, just hanging out with like Chewbacca and shit and all the pilots. But he was in Lost. He's the main character of Lost for 4 seasons, named Charlie.
Okay.
Very interesting character. But
so Liv Tyler's in here too. She has her role.
Yeah.
I know
she was in Armageddon. And Elijah Wood's in Deep Impact. That's funny.
They're in competing movies, and then they decided to join for this trilogy.
Yeah. And she's in love with Viggo Mortensen's character.
Yeah, no, I had a good time with this. So, like I said, it's one of those movie series I never really got around to. And like I said, at some point in time, like, when I'd hear people talk about it, I would just be an asshole and just, do the whole fucking Clerks 2 thing. Like, why do I need to watch 3 hours of a movie just to see people walking around everywhere? And then all of a sudden at the end, they just go.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, it's kind of the asshole summary of the trilogy, right? But it doesn't do it justice. But there's only one trilogy. The whole Star Wars thing. I get it. It's funny. But I am glad I got around to this. I'm pretty excited to see the rest of them.
So Bilbo,
mm-hmm.
played by Ian Holm from Alien.
Yeah, fucking great, man. He's good in this. Real good.
And my favorite scene when he goes,
yeah. Well, that's one of the fascinating things is like you have these people that are doing all these great roles, and then so many of them like get this evilness to them that they get to express.
I was about to say Kate Blanchett as Gladriel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
later near the end of the movie, and she turns into a fucking like monster too. Another queen elf lady.
And she's trying to trick him, and then she's like, "Okay, you passed the test." I thought that was pretty cool. Yeah, I went in, knowing that this is like a culturally significant film. Everyone's really loving it, and I'm watching it. It's like, okay, I've seen all of Game of Thrones. I haven't seen the House of Dragon show. I think I maybe saw the first episode or two. And then I've seen all the Harry Potter stuff, right? I saw all those movies eventually, but
oh, interesting. I didn't know you'd seen all those at this point.
Yeah. I think during the pandemic, they're all on HBO at the time. And so at one point in time, I think I just watched one movie a night for, like a week.
That's funny. We just started rewatching those, and HBO is going to redo those, but fuck that shit.
I mean,
I have a problem with the redo only because J.K. Rowling is still involved, like in the actual show running and stuff. So,
yeah, and I just don't know what you do with that, right? When you're dealing with someone that is a fucking garbage human in that way.
Yeah.
The fascinating thing about the Lord of the Rings stuff here is, they're doing all these other series, and they did the Hobbit trilogy too. So obviously, eventually I'll have to get around to all that.
Amazon Prime is the series, Lord of the Rings series. I've not watched any of it. I've heard it's good. I did not like the first Hobbit movie necessarily. I haven't seen the second or third, to be honest.
Okay.
So,
do those take place as sequels to this series?
No, because The Hobbit is the prequel. Like it was the first book that J.R.R. Tolkien wrote, and it is about Bilbo finding the ring on an adventure with Gandalf in the cave with Gollum that they kind of briefly showed at the beginning of this movie, or in the middle somewhere.
So they're all together when they find it?
Well, Gandalf is with him on a journey, like...
Oh, okay.
Like built with Bilbo and stuff. I don't know if he's with him in that exact moment or anything, but it's been so long. And then the thing about that is The Hobbit is one book, and then Lord of the Rings each has their own book, and they each have their own movie.
Mm-hmm.
There's some other stuff that takes place in the universe. There's the Silmarillion. It's like another book that I think there's a couple of random characters from the stuff in it, but it's not about the ring and stuff like that. And it's a different time period, so. But they made 3 Hobbit movies out of one book, and it's much shorter than any of the Lord of the Rings books too. So it's like, what the hell are you doing?
Yeah,
so I didn't even.
I mean, I heard all the controversy around that, and then to me, that's one of the other reasons that kept me away from the original trilogy. Was just like, okay, so you're going to take 3 in 1, and I get, you got studios trying to push it because they're successful, but I guess it's just a general mistrust for like how are you handling that IP.
Yeah.
So, but I am glad I saw this. I had fun with it. Let's kind of just talk through the story. You said like the intro there. I really enjoyed that intro. It sets the stage for anyone that doesn't have a fucking clue. Like for me, it was like, okay, here's the basis for this ring. Here's why this shit's significant. And then you get the little backstory. You get to see a little bit of Gollum and my precious and all that kind of fun shit,
Yeah. Well, that's the thing is about, like, I'm not a big person who's into fantasy or sword and sorcery movies or anything. Like, it has to be really good. And I think I don't think anything comes even close to this. Like, even Game of Thrones. And I've only seen a handful of that, but like, wasn't my thing. So, but.
And for me, like, and I say Game of Thrones because Game of Thrones, I tried watching it once and I got through like episode 4 and it was just like, wasn't fucking capturing my attention. And then so many people are like, no, you gotta watch it. You gotta try it. So then I tried it again, kind of stopped for midway through that season, and then finally convinced myself to kind of pick up where I was at and just get through it. And then by the end of the first season, I was enjoying it. But this is pretty much immediate, right? They set the story for you. You get going here. I mean, it's a long movie, especially as a first time view.
Well, I was about to say, as someone who's watched it a lot of times, my brain like breaks it into parts. You know what I mean? Like, so obviously
Yeah.
there's that intro part at the beginning.
Yeah, you segment it. My brain still hasn't done that yet because it was like, okay, taking it all in and trying to figure out where the story's going, where the significant breaks are.
Yeah. You got that whole bit at the Shire, essentially, with Bilbo and Frodo and Gandalf and his birthday party and the discovering of the ring. And then Gandalf leaves and comes back and is like, holy shit, this is the fucking One Ring. We got to get this shit out of here.
Yeah, and I like how they have all these different types of creatures and, types of characters living through here.
Yeah.
Thought that was pretty neat.
Well, it's exactly. There's men, there's dwarves, there's hobbits, there's elves, and then there's also like goblins, trolls, orcs, like wizards, and like there's dragons.
Well, and I was pretty surprised, what is his name? Is it Christian or Christopher Lee?
Yeah, Christopher Lee. His name. Well, that's the thing is, so he's Saruman.
Yeah.
And then there's the big eye in the sky is Sauron. So it's kind of like these are too similar. J.R.R. Tolkien. You could have done better with that.
Yeah, and I don't necessarily have an issue with that. Now that's slightly annoying, but just seeing his character come in there and like that was a pretty big twist early on. I wasn't expecting. Yeah, I didn't remember that, and so I had fun with that, like the little battle there.
He's fun. I like him. And then I don't know if it's spoiler or not for you, but either way, Gandalf does come back in the second and third movie. So,
I mean, I was assuming you don't kill him off. I mean, he just told him to go, so I was assuming he figured out a way. He's a fucking wizard.
No, you wait. The second movie is my favorite for sure.
Okay,
like it's great. There's a big ass like battle scene, like midway towards the end, I guess, and it's like, yeah, it's just crazy. There's so many cool things going on in this second one, so that'd be fun to watch too.
Yeah, I mean, ready to see that for sure. Hoping I can sit down and focus on them and watch it all start to finish. This one I had to break up into several bits because it was so long and I had other shit going on.
He's trying to swack it. You can't see it off camera, but he's biting the cable and he's just like
trolling you, fucking with you.
Yeah. So, how about Sean Bean as Boromir? Alec Trevelyan himself. Obviously he's kind of a butthead character, but very interesting. Got to show that temptation of man, and that man is like pretty weak and shit to that shit.
Yeah, man is weak. Man is hungry for power, basically, is kind of how that's sold. And I agree with that, right? Look at modern politics. Yeah. People do anything for a little bit of power. Yeah, I thought he was great in there, which is weird that you mentioned that because, like, I didn't even notice that until you said that. And I'm like, oh, yeah, that was. Okay.
Yeah. One does not simply walk into Mordor.
Yeah.
All the memes from this movie, too. Of like Bilbo saying, after all, it's mine. Why shouldn't I keep it?
Yeah. Oh, man. It was just a lot of fun. Those monster creatures kind of near the end were those orcs that they were the undead.
Yeah. So there's
the creature that gets beheaded kind of near the end, like right before the end.
Yeah, those are orcs. So they are like, some orcs are like, I can't remember what the name is now. I feel like an idiot. The Urukai.
Okay.
So there's like two types. There's like a fancier, like more, that's like bred with elves. That's like apparently what orcs are, is they were bred from elves. They're like fucking monster elves, essentially.
Okay.
And then the trolls were the giant monsters they faced in the cave, and then the Balrog is the giant ass monster in the cave.
Yeah.
And then the
Yeah, no,
goblins were the ones in the caves as well. So
yeah, the one thing I did think that was interesting, you know, they mentioned some dragons in there, right? Didn't they mention that Gandalf was on a quest with the dragon, or Bilbo was at one point?
yeah, because that's Smog probably.
Okay, and are there dragons in the other two movies?
What? There's a dragon in like very briefly, I think.
Okay,
But there's in the Hobbit movies, there's more dragon action.
okay. I just curious because, you know, like that's uh, an interesting way to look at it. Like, I look back and I remember seeing Dragonheart in theaters, and like, you know, Sean Connery voiced the dragon in that, which is pretty cool. And I enjoyed that movie quite a bit. I don't
Give me
know
the
if it's
string.
held up because I haven't seen it in so long.
Give him the goddamn glove.
uh,
Darwin's gone all cat mode, so he's trying to beat my ass.
this movie's, I mean, the interesting thing about a movie like this is the fact that it's not nonstop action the whole time, right? The stakes aren't so high and annoying that like you can't fucking pause or take a break. You know, it ebbs and flows pretty naturally, I would say. You know, there's some exciting spots and then there's some scary stuff in there. And I say scary, you know, just by the mean that it's creating a good amount of tension you fear for your characters.
Yeah.
And then, you know, there's some fun action sequences, and I love seeing the hobbits get on there and fight, you know, and defend each other and everything. I thought that was pretty fun.
Yeah, there's damn, there's so much. I'm like trying to think of what we have not talked about, and there is a lot, but like
I mean,
the
you got
monster that's in the sea outside of the cave that they end up going into.
and I mean the whole snow sequence, you know, where they're on the mountain, they have to make the decision, and they let Frodo make the decision, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah.
You know, they kind of put it in his hands. And let me just ask you this, since I haven't seen the rest yet. Do they explain why he's able to handle the temptation so well compared to others?
I think it's just because of his personality, because he doesn't want power at all to begin with. He just wants to like chill out, smoke hobbit weed, and eat some food.
Okay.
You know what I mean? He's like,
yeah, no, that's fine. And I just kind of was wondering if there's like some ulterior motive for him, like as a character arc. But ultimately, it's just he doesn't fucking
he's not like
desire
the
those
chosen
things.
one or anything, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just because, you know, I mean, Bilbo carried it for years and didn't do anything evil either, but he was
But they're
just
also
selfish about it.
yeah, but they're also talking about an awakening, right? Because didn't
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing is that Mordor's like armies are being rebuilt and shit. And I don't know if you noticed this or picked up on it, but the Nazgul or the Ring Wraiths, those are the like Grim Reaper looking motherfuckers on the horses. They are the kings that were given the 9 rings.
Oh, okay. Okay,
Like in
yeah.
the beginning explanation of the movie, the 9 human kings or whatever.
And
So
they're
that's
like
why
some
when you see in the
form or
Ghost
whatever the hell
World,
they are.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, that was fascinating. And then they showed that caravan of people going to cross over to the afterlife, as presumed. That's what that scene was, right? Where they see all the ghost people. I think that's kind of mid part of the movie.
I don't know what the hell you're talking about.
I thought that was with Liv Tyler's character was kind of around there.
Oh, I don't know.
Because they see it and they talk about like the people passing on, and they're like, I think Frodo's talking about being sad for him or something.
Oh, maybe I just never picked up on that, man. I don't know.
Okay.
It's not ringing a bell. There's a lot to this fucking movie, but
yeah, and it's crazy. I mean, when you think Peter Jackson, right? He directed this. That's what he's known for. He did the Hobbit trilogy as well. He's done some of my favorite shit. I fucking love The Frighteners. The Frighteners is a fucking amazing movie.
Say, if you're looking back in time, before Lord of the Rings, it was The Frighteners. Before that, Dead Alive. Before that, Bad Taste.
Mm-hmm.
I think he did one more in there, actually. But
Yeah, and so you look at he's done these like underground like I mean, he came from, his background isn't one that would lead you to think, okay, this guy's going to go do the fucking Lord of the Rings adaptation.
no, he was doing splatter movies. If anything, you just thought he was going to do big budget splatter movies or slashers or something.
Yeah.
Zombie movies, vampire, like something like that.
Which is crazy considering he did all 3 of these Lord of the Ring movies and then he did fucking King Kong.
Yeah, he actually was signed up to do King Kong before Lord of the Rings, I think.
And did all these before that. I mean, that's wild, man.
Yeah. And that's a decent King Kong movie. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but it's pretty decent. I mean, for what it is.
I haven't seen that in a very long time. I do recall seeing that when it came out on home video or whatever. That was back in the day when you'd still rent shit. Because I never fucking could afford cable or anything when I had my first couple of apartments.
Yeah, I feel that. You just buy fucking DVDs.
I'd go to the $5 bin at Walmart and get a movie that way usually, or we'd go rent some shit.
Yeah.
So you said the second film, The Two Towers, is your favorite.
Yeah.
And Return of the King is the third here in the series. Do you feel like that gives pretty damn good closure to this 3-story arc?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no... I feel like there's no better closure you could have.
Okay.
It's not like it does a freeze frame on every character's face and says, this person went and did this, like an old 80s movie, but...
Yeah.
But,
Does it kind of give some of that, like, character send-off shit, though?
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
I think so. I like it. I think the ending's good, and there's more characters to be introduced too. You don't even know that Brad Dourif's in the second one.
Nice.
Some cool motherfuckers.
Well, I'm curious, because they kill off a few characters, right? Not a ton were presumed killed off.
Well, Sean Beam, yeah, he's dead for sure.
Okay, that's
Gandalf is coming back.
Okay. Which I thought was interesting, because at the end, they say that they're going to carry on the fellowship, even if it's just the small group of them. So,
yeah, that's the thing. They all very much stay involved, even though at the end of the movie, he's like, "Oh, we're not going to follow them," and he's like, "Nah, we're just gonna there's too much temptation and shit there. We're not going to fuck with them. We're gonna go fuck some shit up elsewhere."
Yeah, which it was interesting. So, I mean, I took that, and not knowing shit about the rest of these, right? It's pure speculation, and you've seen this, so you know if I'm right or wrong. But I took that as that they're going to distract the evil armies or whatever from them without protecting them, like being there to protect them in battle, but they'll distract them in other ways.
Well, those 3 are their first thing they're gonna do is let's go save the other 2 hobbits, not Frodo and Pip. They're gonna go save Merry and Pippin. So
okay,
I think that's what they said at the end there too.
Yeah, and that was interesting because you have the end of this movie where they play like the gentle music and they kind of close it out after the battle scene, right? We see one of the heroes is lost. We see those 2 kind of reconcile, put their differences aside, and find some mutual respect there because they've clearly had tension the whole journey so far, but they weren't like fighting in each other's faces, but there's differences of opinion.
Who?
Oh, I don't fucking remember any of the character names, man. I suck at that.
What? Just said like the elf and the dwarf? Is that what you're talking about?
No, the 2 humans, the guy that
was
tempted by the ring, and then the other guy.
Yeah. Well, because they both come from men, obviously.
Yeah.
Sean Beam, his character comes from Gondor.
Mm-hmm.
And
we find the other one's the last of the bloodline from Gondor and is supposed to be the king over there, but they don't even have a king currently. Is that right?
Yeah, so there's...
If I caught that all correctly.
Let me look at a map here. I have to literally pull up a map of Middle-earth to name these places.
Oh, that's fine. I'm good with that.
That I'm talking about. Okay, Rohan. So Rohan and Gondor are like the big 2 I might even be explaining this wrong, but this is how I understand it. Rohan and Gondor are like the big human, like the men, like they're where they live and stuff. They're kingdoms, I guess you'd say.
Okay.
So Sean Beam is from Gondor, and Aragorn is from Rohan, but he's also the descendant of the king who used to rule over both of them joined together.
Okay.
So that's why he's like my king and all that shit at the end.
Okay.
So he's like, yeah, like I really like that reconciliation scene too.
Yeah, I thought that was a good way to end it. I mean, but it felt very much, and it's weird to say this just because, and you get into the nerd fandoms and sometimes people get really pissed about it, but it felt very much like a Empire Strikes Back influence as far as film goes, because you're ending kind of on a fucked up note, right? Like the main characters are okay, but we've had death, we've had loss, and then we have two of our characters that have been fucking carried away, and we have no idea what their current state is. Are they, we know they're told to be taken alive. Then they said, I mean, the hobbits are halflings or whatever, right?
They're hobbits. They also, people call them halflings.
Yeah, because I remember, when the other wizard told him to, bring him back alive, basically.
Yeah.
Just the halflings, but kill everybody else. So he wanted to keep all four of the halflings alive, which I thought was peculiar.
Because he knows one of them has the ring or something, and he
wasn't sure
can
which
use them
one.
against each other, probably. I guess I don't know.
Okay. Yeah, I thought that was fascinating. But you have two of those characters that basically are willing to sacrifice themselves. Normally, they would have been killed in battle, but knowing that they're told not to be killed, like they get taken away, and then we're left with these heroes kind of fucking just regrouping after getting their asses kicked.
Yeah.
And they're like, they're already across the water. Like, no, it's their journey now. And I'm like, okay. And you do see their fighting skills get better, because they have that little training montage and everything else where they're, they had a 40-day journey. So there's obviously a lot of shit they're doing along this 40-day walk.
Yeah.
Where they're working together and doing all these other things. So I thought that was fascinating. There's so much to take in on a story like that. I mean, I feel like you're probably 3 or 4 views in before you really understand the ins and outs and ebbs and flows of this to appreciate it at a good level.
Well, for sure, because I'm at that point now where I finally feel like when I watch it, it's like I understand everything that's going on, and I can understand all the weird different subplots, and even you see me still forgetting things names here because there's so many different weird names for characters, places, things, and
this is one of those things I'm like, I could have been enjoying this for a very long time, but I've got from now till forever to enjoy it. So
yeah, it's fun discovering stuff that you just never watched before. That's excellent.
Well, to your point, like I was never crazy on like the fantasy stuff.
Yeah.
Nothing against it, but it just wasn't my first thing to naturally seek out. I will say most of what I have watched that is fantasy I've enjoyed, but it's not like, oh, I just love elves and dwarves and all these types of things in a way that it like makes me seek that content out. But usually when I do watch it, I enjoy it. So
yeah, it has to be done really well. These are my favorites by far, but
yeah.
Yeah, so we got 2 more to get to.
And that's what we're going to be doing the next couple of weeks here.
Yeah.
So if you're wanting to watch along and tag along, hopefully if you're like me and you haven't seen these, make sure you jump in and watch along so you can let us know what you're thinking of them, because to me that's fascinating that these are out here.
Yeah. So, and as far as movie scheduling goes, the rest of the month, there's also Werewolves is coming out this week. And then there's the Lord of the Rings movie in the middle of the month sometime, the new animated movie, War for Rohirrim. And then Nosferatu's, I think, on Christmas Day.
Yeah, there's tons of stuff to look forward to.
I'm looking forward to Nosferatu. It's getting pretty good reviews.
That's what I've been hearing, so I'm excited to see that.
Did you ever see The Witch from that guy? The Vavitch.
That takes place in a village, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen that one. Yeah.
And then he did The Lighthouse.
Yeah, I didn't see all of that yet. I think we started watching it and like I was dozing off and I was like, I don't want to just fall asleep during this movie. And it wasn't because the movie was boring, it's because I was fucking tired and started it too late, you know?
Well, it's a weird movie, I'm not going to lie, but yeah. Pretty solid too.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think there's a lot of good movies to look forward to. So this is another interesting. So I had a friend growing up named Mike, and he was, I don't know what happened to him because last I knew, I haven't seen him on Facebook in forever. Like we briefly connected on there, but I think he got rid of his Facebook, you know?
Yeah.
He was never super active on there, but he was big into the Lord of the Rings stuff, the animated movies and stuff before these even came out. And so when he heard about these being made, he was super hyped up on it, was big into that. But he's also one of my friends that like got me into Star Wars before they announced the special editions and everything. So we were watching the regular, he had a Betamax player, so we'd watch the movies on Betamax at his place.
Yeah.
So that was pretty cool, just seeing the different formats over there. Makes you appreciate that shit.
The other animated movies, so there's The Hobbit, The Lord of the Rings, and then The Return of the King. That's what they're called.
Mm-hmm.
And the production companies shifted throughout those, so it's very interesting. Let's see.
I know. I want to say that I've heard some people really like the Hobbit version of the animated movie, but I haven't heard people talk too much about the other ones.
So The Hobbit is the one that's done by Rankin Bass.
Okay.
And then they did Lord of the Rings, which shifted to a different company. Let's see. From a screenplay by Chris Conkling, Peter. Traditional cell animation. Yeah, I'm trying to see. And then I think for the last one, let's see, which was released in 1980, was back to Rankin Bass.
Damn. Okay.
Yeah. So kind of weird.
It's fascinating. So I just realized the original was published in July of 1954.
The original Lord of the Rings. The Hobbit, I think, was like 1937.
Jesus, that's crazy.
Which is why, what is that? I can't remember what movie it's in now, but it's in one of the, Bucky Barnes makes it in one of the Avengers movies or something. He makes a joke. They're like, when did you have time to see Lord of the Rings or The Hobbit? And he's like, I read it when it came out in 1937.
Oh, yeah, that's hilarious. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, that's pretty fascinating. I mean, there's a whole world here of fantasy, and just curious about how some of the rest of this may go, because that's pretty wild stuff. Just when you look at it.
It's an epic tale at its best. Like,
well, and I think obviously it stood the test of time, right? They're still inspired by this and still making content with it.
Yeah. And then movies hold up great still too. Like these are just excellent. There's no other way for me to put it. Quite enjoy them.
Yeah, that's fascinating. So curious if the animated stuff's worth watching at all.
I'm going to do a video one. I'm not going to do separate videos. I'm going to do one video on all three of them probably. Talk about those because I've not seen them all the way through. I've seen The Hobbit, but I have them all on tape, so I'm going to go through them this month sometime here.
Good stuff. Well, I think that's pretty much going to be the show for tonight. We'll wrap this thing up, but thanks for checking us out if you have. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you back with the next one.
Good night, everybody.